Hello everybody, this is Gareth Cahoon Speaks back here with another video. I'd like you to hit the subscribe bar, give me a thumbs up if you like the content, or hit the notification bell to be notified when I post my next post, or else you can look me up at my website, which is www.garethcahoon.co.uk, or if you'd like to support the ministry and my work on my website, YouTube, TikTok and other various social media sites, you can do so through PayPal, GarethCahoon3 at gmail.com. The list of people above my head are Tucker Carlson, Ilhan Omar, Francesca Albanese, the Ayatollah of Iran, the Saudi princes Meghan Kelly, and I know she's behind my head, but that's the wee Green Goblin herself, Greta Thunberg, and Candace Owens. These are just the list of the people um, who are anti-Israel and have the biggest hate towards Israel. The 10 are top 10 influencers most responsible for anti-Jewish sentiment. If you were to ask 10 different people who they thought were the most responsible for having fanned the flames of anti-Jewish sentiment, you'd probably get 10 different answers. And that's why the Women of the Quad, sponsored by JNS, Jerusalem News Service, decided to do a top 10 countdown of the worst offenders of 2025. The weekly podcast featuring Fleur Hassan Nahum, Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem, Emily Schrader, journalist and human rights activist Oshana Keats Jaskal, advocate for the voices of Orthodox women, and Belamid Baluchi, South African activist, model, and dancer. Together they went through the list based on the recommended votes of the audience, carefully making their case for why each candidate was culpable for the fomenting hate of Jews. Here are their picks. In the 10 spot was Cards of the Year, best representative, represented by Meghan Kelly, and the Heritage Foundation both have refused to call out fellow conservatives who have criticised Israel. Heritage's president defended his friend Tucker Carlson when he platformed a Holocaust denier, and Meghan Kelly has also come to the defence of Israel bashers under the pretext of just asking questions, losing many loyal supporters. 9. Jews who hate Jews, best represented by American journalist Peter Beinart, who himself a Jew has continuously come against Israel and has no problem turning on his people by legitimising their enemies. Jewish voices for peace also fall into the category for siding with Palestinians. The woke left, best represented by Greta Thunberg, who brought non-existent humanitarian aid to Gaza on her flotilla ship, connected with violent terror groups. She flies around the world despite her climate pollution platitudes to support efforts against Jews in Israel. Hollywood morons, ignorantly weighing in on the subject and cause they know nothing about, best represented by children's show host Miss Rachel, who has injected anti-Israel blood libels into her broadcast, and Rosie O'Donnell, who refused to acknowledge the October 7 rapes of Israeli women, instead pivoting to the suffering of the Gazan children. 6. Feckless government leaders, allowing anti-Semitism to thrive in their countries while local Islamic migrant protesters called for the death of Jews, all for the sake of not being accused of racism and keeping their votes. They placate those doing great harm to their culture and society. Mentioned were Australia's Anthony Albanese, Canada's Mark Carney, who recognised Palestine as a state, Ireland's leaders, and UK's Keir Starmer, who celebrated the return of Islamist British citizen Allah Abdel El Fattah, who had been detained in Egypt. El Fattah has called for the murder of Jews in UK police, along with the torture of their wives and children. It was the British citizenship conferred upon him which was instrumental in his release from prison. He was forced to apologise for social media posts which called British white people pigs and monkeys. Islamist politicians of the Green Red Alliance, best represented by Zoran Mandani for his anti-Zionist, anti-Semitic sentiments, which he has brought to New York. His first act as mayor was to remove a law protecting Jews. Also mentioned was Ilhan Omar, who was generously granted refuge in the United States from a war-torn Somalia, but constantly complains and criticises America's and London's Mayor Sadiq Khan, likewise noted as the Islamist who ruined his city. For the woke right media protesters, best represented by Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, both have reverted to a type of anti-Semitism which centuries ago invaded Catholicism. It includes blood libels against Jews, and Owens has already accused them of running the slave trade. Additionally mentioned in the category was Al Jazeera, which has acted as a spokesperson for Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood terrorists while creating distortive narratives to manipulate the public. 3. NGOs, most notably the United Nations, many of whose people have been working for Hamas. They literally employed Hamas terrorist UN Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese, a good friend of Greta Thunberg, has been blatantly anti-Israel, known for saying that the Jewish state is responsible for one of the cruelest genocides in modern history. The UN has spent over $150 million a year on propaganda against Israel. Qatar and the Islamic regime of Iran, the two-headed snake. Qatar spearheads the Muslim Brotherhood movement while also sponsoring anti-Israel propaganda through academia, social media and governments. Qatar's massive financial investments trying to lure and mesmerise world leaders. It's designed to win them over while playing a double game of peacemaker, but at the same time providing refuge and cover for Hamas terrorists. They are by no means neutral players. As one person said, you can't fund extremists and then lecture the world about peace. The bottom line is that Qatar is a terror state and owns a sizable amount of property in London, as does the Islamic Republic of Iran's. Qatar's demonic ideology has been exported to every corner of the globe while funding many non-profits worldwide. Iran has fueled Hezbollah to the tune of $1 billion just in the last year. Iran's destructive forces has disseminated Lebanon, not to mention their own country where their citizens are greatly oppressed, lacking basic necessities. Hamas terrorists, they were the foot soldiers who followed through on Qatar and Iran's plan. Khalid Mashal, one of Hamas's leaders, who still remains at large, lives in the lap of luxury, employing the best of Qatar, had to offer, putting their people up to fight Hamas, and like cards now allowing Gazans to take cover in 800 kilometres of tunnels they built, are responsible for having left their people homeless, impoverished, yet they have played the victim card after wreaking destruction on everyone. Although this list certainly is not all encompassing of Israel's enemies and the Jewish people, it is the one which the Quad's audience voted upon and those that saw the main perpetrators of hate. So you can watch this podcast on JNS, the Quad. Shalom, Maranatha, and goodbye to all the scumbags of the week.